It's a little bit easier now as a senior developer, as somebody who's been doing this for a long time, because for me, it's all about I tend to learn things more because I need to, not because I want to, or not because I feel like it's part of my development journey. If you're going to be practicing, if you're going to be investing time in something, it's got to be more than just knowledge. Um, or that's going to get old, right? If you're just doing it because you want to be an XYZ dev, right? A React dev, or you want to be an Angular dev, or you want to be a Java dev, or whatever it is, right? If you're just learning something for the knowledge aspect, it's gonna lose its luster. It's gonna lose its appeal. You're not gonna want to spend the time. Now there are aspects of, just like budgeting your finances, there's aspects of budgeting your time. If you've got a family, you've got to figure out what makes sense as far as how much time you can spend and still, have those relationships long term. And it make them enjoyable, right? I'll be honest with you, I've not done that well all of my career. There have been many times in my career where I've spent a lot of time not necessarily needed, just because that was more important to me. And that hurts your relationships, hurts your marriage if you're married, it hurts your relationship with your kids. Can even hurt friendships if you're pulling back away from those friendships because of that. So that is a piece of it. You need to figure out what's the most important things in your life and plan around those. Because most of the time there's going to be relationships that are most important. Jobs, obviously more important than you learning on the side. But how do you manage that time investment? For me, it's about putting the effort and the time into things that are purposeful, that have a longer term purpose than just knowledge. Because there's in the development world, lots of things that you can learn. There's lots of things that you can know. There's nobody that knows everything about development. So you need to have a purpose in what you're learning, because then you can budget that time out and say, okay, I need to learn this for this project, right? So for example, let's say we're going to do, I'm trying to think of something we probably won't do. We're going to do Go for the back end of this project. Well, I'm going to have to budget some time to learn Go. And that might look like 3 hours on a Saturday, because that's the only time that I have that's not going to conflict with other things. So, um, I typically spend my learning time in things that are important to me outside of just learning knowledge. So if it's something for example, I spent a lot of time working with the Airtables thing, learning Airtables. I really don't care for it, but I put the time into it because it was important for me to have something that would hopefully work better than what I wanted. So there was an importance to it. Sometimes I have to spend time outside of work learning new things that I'm not familiar with in order to be able to do my job during the working hours. So again, it's about what's important to me. There has to be something more than knowledge that drives that. Because you won't do it. Um, when you don't feel like doing it, if there's not something motivating you outside of just knowledge. And then B, it won't be as useful to you if it's just knowledge, as opposed to building, learning something for a specific purpose. Early signs to burnout. I would say the earliest sign to burnout is not enjoying what you do. If all of what you do is just work, um, you're probably getting burned out. Lack of sleep is a sign of burnout. If you're finding it difficult to sleep because you're thinking about projects and problems, if you're not able to lay it aside, so kind of lack of sleep as well as carrying it on throughout your day. Again, it's important for us as developers, as much as we can. You can't always turn the brain off. I mean, even as I'm doing this live stream, I'm thinking about things for one of my clients actually at the moment. And so you can't always turn it off. That's unfortunately just a reality of what we do, right? We're problem solvers. Problems get stuck on our head. We start thinking through those problems. You can't always turn that off. Doing other things. So if you find yourself isolating, if you find yourself not doing things that you normally would do, Maybe it's, an outside activity. Maybe it's spending time with your kids or your spouse, or maybe it's just something that you enjoy, like gaming. To Trove's point, maybe you like to play whatever. Let's say Fortnite, right? So you like to play Fortnite, and you typically do that for an hour a day, but you find you haven't played Fortnite in 2 weeks. Not that Fortnite necessarily is the most important thing for you to be doing, but that's a good sign that you're heading towards burnout. Because one of the problems with burnout is burnout happens because you're spending too much time, too much effort, or more time or more effort than you're normally used to. And the longer you do that, the closer you are to getting burned out. And so if you're having trouble sleeping, that could be a sign for it. If you're finding that you're not doing things that you normally would be doing, especially things that you enjoy, and that time is being spent on, you know, going down this development process. Again, there's times where you can budget for that in your time, and you might just decide, you know what, for these 2 weeks, I'm not going to do gaming because I got to do this. If after 2 weeks you stop and you go back and you level set your life, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you find you're 3 weeks into that or 4 weeks into that and you've not made that transition back to normality, that's a really good warning sign that you are heading towards burnout. Now, burnout looks different for lots of different people. I've worked with developers where burnout is like a crash, right? Where they just like they hit a wall and they can't do anything. They can't think about a project. They can't write code. They just literally hit the wall. I've worked with developers who the burnout looks like nervous breakdown. Just to be perfectly honest with you, they become anxious, have a lot of anxieties, start worrying about potentially getting laid off, start worrying about or being fired, start worrying about whether their code is good enough. Um, so that can be a sign of burnout. But I think part of that is just understanding you and how you respond to that. Headaches. Headaches is a very common way of knowing that you're heading towards burnout, especially during a short period of time. We have to remember that what we do is a very mentally taxing job. The majority of being a developer is not writing code. It's actually all these other things that we've been talking about, project management, thinking through things, thinking about what code I want to write and why I want to write that code and what's it going to do? What does it have to do? Thinking about the process of it. There's a lot of thought that goes into writing code. Even if as a junior developer, you only get very simple tickets, you still have to think about those tickets. You have to understand the ticket. You have to internalize the ticket. You have to think about how you're going to accomplish that ticket, because there's obviously often multiple ways to accomplish a specific ticket. So it's a very mental process. It's something that's going to take a lot of thought, a lot of energy. Um, Even though I sit for most of my day, I'm tired. I'm tired at the end of an 8-hour day or a 9-hour day or even a 6-hour day sometimes. I'm tired because there's a mental load. And a lot of people end up uh, getting headaches fairly frequently. And that can be a sign, especially if it's something new, that you're starting to get headaches more and more. That can be a sign that you're headed towards burnout, because this is a very mentally taxing thing. And that when you have mental fatigue, that affects your body as well. So that you could start getting fatigue physically, and where you just feel like you're tired all the time. So listen to your body. That's a huge key factor in thinking about burnout and where you're at. Relationships, um, having conversations with family, with friends, with those important relationships in your life. If you feel like that you're approaching burnout, talk to them, so that they can give you encouragement, but B, talk to them and find out, hey, have you noticed me kind of pulling back and isolating a little bit? Get their feedback. Tell them to speak into your life Even if you don't ask for the feedback, tell them to be honest with you and say, hey, you're pulling back. You're not as available as you used to be. And again, sometimes you might have to have a period of time where you do that in order to do something that you want to do, and you make that sacrifice for a short term. But if you're seeing a steady decline in relationships, um, you're going to hit burnout. And again, burnout looks different for everybody, right? So burnout for you could look like complete isolation, and you realize that all my friends are gone, or nobody, everybody's kind of moved on in their life without me, and I'm just here, developing stuff. And now burnout to you is social anxiety because you don't have those relationships that you used to have. So I think it's important to understand that burnout looks different from one person to the next. Um, and so you're gonna have to try to figure out what of those signs you're starting to see, and then make a plan to ensure that you don't do that. Set timers, you know, set alarms so that you're going to stop at a certain time, and stick to it. Um, Especially when you're in the middle of a problem that you're trying to figure out. It's really hard to walk away sometimes. But you got to do it. You just got to do it.